What if you could actually see the future? Not with some crystal ball, but with real data. That's the challenge that every major company is facing right now as they try to get a handle on the financial risks and opportunities of a changing climate. And frankly, it's a question investors are demanding answers to.
So, let's paint a picture. Imagine a CEO, not in a stuffy boardroom, but in this high-tech command center. They're not just looking at next quarter's sales. No, they are running simulations of the future. What happens to our supply chain if sea levels rise and redraw the map? What happens to our entire business model if the world suddenly flips the switch to clean energy? This isn't a sci-fi movie anymore. This is the new, high-stakes reality of corporate strategy. And that, right there, brings us to the trillion-dollar question. How in the world do you plan for a future you can't actually predict? It's a puzzle that's no longer just some far-off thought experiment. It's a very real, very urgent financial problem for businesses and investors today.
Yeah, this is not some distant threat we can kick down the road. As Michael Bloomberg, who's the chair of the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, we'll just call it the TCFD, as he puts it, the risk is real and already present. And look, when one of the biggest names in finance says something like that, you can be sure the markets are paying attention. They want to know who's ready and who's going to be left behind.
So, how are companies supposed to navigate all this uncertainty? Well, the TCFD has an idea. It's basically a what-if machine for business. Think of it like a flight simulator, but instead of for pilots, it's for CEOs. It's a way you can test your strategy against all kinds of future storms without, actually crashing the plane.
And that tool has a name. It's called scenario analysis. Now, the key thing to get here is that this is not about predicting the future. No one can do that. It's all about stress testing your strategy against a whole range of believable futures, so you're not caught completely by surprise when the unexpected, happens.
And here's why it's so powerful. By running through these different scenarios, a company can start to have much smarter, more strategic conversations. It can actually put a number on potential financial impacts, and it can pinpoint where it's most vulnerable. But maybe the most important thing? It forces everyone to break free from that really dangerous business-as-usual mindset.
So what does this all really boil down to? It's a stress test. That's it. Just like we make banks stress test their finances to make sure they can survive a crisis, the TCFD is basically asking companies to do the exact same thing with their business models. Can your strategy actually hold up under the pressure of a changing climate? That's the bottom line question they want answered.
The TCFD's recommendations are built on 4 main pillars. You've got governance, strategy, risk management, and then metrics and targets. They're all super important, but for today, we're really going to zoom in on strategy. Why? Because that's where the rubber meets the road. It's the part that forces companies to look ahead and ask those really tough questions about their own ability to survive and thrive.
So, what is the core recommendation from the TCFD? Honestly, it's pretty simple. Just be transparent. Companies need to open up about how climate change could hit their business. But, and this is a big but, it's not just about listing all the scary risks. It's about proving their resilience. How well does their game plan actually hold up when the world around them changes? That is the real test. Now, every good stress test needs a benchmark, right? A common goalpost. And when it comes to climate change, the TCFD has a very specific number in mind. A number that honestly has the power to reshape the entire global economy. That benchmark is 2 degrees Celsius. It's the line in the sand that was drawn by the Paris Agreement, that global commitment to limit warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius. But it's not just a scientific target anymore. It's a political and economic reality that is already changing markets everywhere. And it's become the yardstick by which every company's climate strategy is going to be measured. So, what does a 2-degree world actually look like for a business? Well, the risks kind of fall into 2 big buckets. First, you have the physical risks, the direct hits from a changing climate. Think a hurricane that just wipes out a factory, or a massive drought that cripples your supply chain. Then, you have the transition risks. These are the economic shockwaves from the big shift to a low-carbon world. Think a new carbon tax that makes your product too expensive, or a new technology that just disrupts your entire industry overnight. A truly resilient strategy has to be ready for both. Okay, so why should you care about any of this? Because what happens in these boardrooms doesn't stay in the boardrooms. The financial shockwaves of climate change are going to be felt by literally everyone, and they have the potential to reshape the global economy as we know it. Let's talk about some numbers, because they're pretty mind-blowing. The transition to a low-carbon economy, That's not a rounding error on some spreadsheet. We are talking about a $1 trillion a year investment. A year! That is a massive redirection of money, a fundamental rewiring of the entire global financial system. And it's not a future thing, it's happening right now.
Now let's look at the flip side. What's at stake if we get this wrong? The numbers here are just staggering. We're talking about a potential loss of anywhere from $4.2 to $43 trillion in global financial assets by the end of the century. That's not a market correction, that's a potential systemic collapse. This is the kind of risk that keeps people at central banks up at night.
So what is the end game here? What's the point of all this? It's really about creating a smarter, more resilient financial system. A system where money flows to the companies that are building the future, not the ones that are just stuck in the past. It's about making a smoother transition to a sustainable economy, and ultimately, creating more stable markets for all of us.
So what does this all mean for you? Well, it means the future of your investments, your career, our planet, they're all tied together now. The real question is, what future are you preparing for? What future is your portfolio or your company planning for? The world of tomorrow or the world of yesterday?